Okay, so it is early in the morning on Saturday. I think it's 5:15, and I'm gonna make another loaf of sourdough bread. If you watched my last video, I was really excited to use my new organic bread flour, and I had my first fail, and after thinking of what I did, I realized I did not use my starter at its peak. I was so excited to use the bread flour. So this morning, I have two different starters. One, I made a rye starter last night. And look at them. They're at peak. They're both at least doubled in size. This is the rye flour, and she looks absolutely so happy. Look at all her bubbles. Definitely at their peak. They're at least doubled in size. They're nice and bubbly. So that is what I'm going to be using today, and I'm going to get started making my dough in just a few minutes. Okay, so I just gathered everything I think I need to make the sourdough this morning. And I also made myself a coffee because that is very important at this time in the morning. So let's get making some sourdough. I have got my starters, I've got my measuring cups. I actually broke this one making sourdough the other day, the flour, when I was getting it out, snapped the handle, but still serves purpose. So all is well. I got my 1 1/3 of water for this recipe, and I've got my flour. I actually got this bag of flour yesterday at a local store. It is like 44 pounds, like 20 kilograms. I paid $26 for that thing. I've got my salt, my bowl, my tools. So let's mix up some sourdough. There we go. I think I got that at a good angle so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to add my 1 1/3 cup water. I have it at room temperature. Don't want too hot, too cold. Mustard coffee. I'm going to add half of a cup of starter. And I keep a spray bottle around in my kitchen for when I'm making sourdough to get things wet and then things don't stick. So should I use the rye, or should I use the normal one? I'm gonna use the normal one. I'll use the rye tomorrow. Okay. So I want half a cup of my bubbly, happy starter. Come on, Fran. Out of the jar. There's my half a cup. You know what? I'll be happy with a little extra because a little extra starter never hurts. Huh? There we go. And Fran is basically like an empty jar now, but that's okay because I can still use her. All you need is the tiniest little bit of sourdough, like starter left, and you can make tons more. All right. So I'm just going to get this out. The water did really help, but still going to use the scraper to get every last drop of the starter. All right. Oh, she is floating. That's another good way to know that your starter is healthy and ready to use for bread. She floats in the water. So mix her on up. Oh, bubbles. And then I'm going to add 4 cups of flour to this recipe. And I'm going to use the new all-purpose flour that I picked up yesterday. I feed Fran with bread flour. But I got this giant bag of all-purpose flour because I've been making so much bread. The last loaf I actually tried to make, I ran out of flour partway through, and the titration was way too high. I tried to bake it, but it turned out not well. How many am I on? I was on 2, I think. there's 3. There's 4. 4 cups of my flour. All right, and then I'm gonna mix it on up. Okay, and I don't know if you hear that tapping in the background. That is my dog knocking at the door to go outside. So I'll let him out and then get back to this. Okay, Copper's outside. He's a happy boy. Okay, mix this on up. It's gonna look like a shaggy mess, but that's okay. We want a shaggy mess. Just give it time and it will turn into a wonderful dough. But first time using this flour. I find every flour I use, the bread turns out slightly different. So we'll see how this goes with this new all-purpose flour that I bought. Hopefully well, because 20 kilograms of flour for what, $25, $26 I paid? That is a great deal. Yeah, and it doesn't take long to mix this up. Like, look, that's almost exactly what I want right there. That shaggy mess. Oh, dropped the phone. Oh, I don't want to flip the camera. Let's get you back to... There we go. So that shaggy mess is exactly what I want. And I'm going to cover this up with saran wrap. And I'm just going to let it do its thing for about 10 minutes. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes that I've had my starter and flour just hanging out under saran wrap. And I am gonna now add 2 teaspoons of salt, mix it up, and let it sit again before I do my stretch and folds for about 10 minutes. Okay, 2 teaspoons of salt. I might just go in and use my hands because this whisk doesn't want to do a good job right now because the dough is turning into more of a dough. And right now you might see like all the flour isn't mixed in at the bottom. That is perfectly fine. I'm going to wet my hands just so this doesn't stick. It's starting to get a little sticky. And I'm mixing in my salt. I'm starting to stick. And when we go to do our stretch and folds later, like more of that flour and loose dough sitting in the bottom, that will all incorporate itself into the rest of the dough. Okay, salt is all mixed in. I'm going to cover it back up and let it sit for about another 10 minutes or till I'm done my coffee. Okay, so I finished my coffee. This has been sitting a little bit longer than 10 minutes. Doesn't really matter too much. Some recipes say leave it for a half an hour, which is basically what I did. I'm just wetting my hands so that the dough does not stick. And then this is my first round of stretch and folds. I'm going to stretch it, fold it, turn the bowl a quarter turn, stretch it, and fold it. And what this does is it increases the gluten strength in our bread, which is very important. We want it to be strong. And I'm just going to go around and get each side of the bowl. This got to be some of the thickest dough I've made yet. Today I am using a different flour, so that is probably why. Stretch, fold. I think that's why. Let's hope that's why. Let's hope I didn't miscount the cups of flour I was putting in here because it was early in the morning. Stretch it and fold it, and we don't want to tear our dough, but we do want to give it a good stretch. And I'm going to go ahead and do this for 10 minutes this morning, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm all done. Okay, so I got lazy. I did not do it for 10 minutes, but I just turned the bowl around. Maybe did stretch and folds each side for about, or each side maybe like 5 times. This dough is extremely thick. This is supposed to be like a 60% hydration recipe, which is easy for beginners. I'm just gonna put my saran wrap back on the top of this bowl, and I'm gonna put it in the oven with my light on to keep it nice and warm, because it's winter time here in Ontario and my house is cold. Well, a lot colder than any other time of year. And I'm gonna put this in the oven, light on, for about half an hour. And then I will come back and I will do another round of stretch and folds. All right, it is time for second round of stretch and folds. I'm hoping this dough isn't going to feel so thick, but my whole kitchen is kind of one big science experiment right now. Getting it a sourdough, and then you realize all the things you can make with sourdough, which is pretty well everything. So I'm just going to go in, do the same thing I did last time. Turn, stretch and fold. Turn, stretch and fold. And this is still some really thick dough. So who knows how this loaf is going to turn out. Once you change something, it's always going to be a little different. Like this all-purpose flour, instead of the bread flour I was using, is making a big difference in this dough. Like usually it's not this thick. And it incorporates into itself better during the stretch and folds. So come watch and make mistakes with me, because everything is an adventure. You make one little change and you're like, oh, this is completely different. How is this going to turn out? And I decided to make a video because my mom was interested initially of how I make this stuff. But I'm actually enjoying making the videos, so if you want, watch along. See me make mistakes. Yeah, this is so thick. Like, I've never made quite a few loaves now. I can't even tell you how many, and I've never had dough like this. So just going to continue doing stretch and folds, and I'll continue with my normal recipe. And let's hope this loaf turns out, and that I'm just, every time I decide to make a video, I'm not just documenting a fail. I've only had the one that I did last week. I made a couple of loaves since then, but again, with the normal bread flour I was using, this is a new all-purpose one I got, and it just seems so weird. But like I said, my whole kitchen right now is one big science experiment. Like, everything to do with sourdough has a science behind it, and I think that's why I'm enjoying it, is because it's so cool. Like, I keep learning new things, and the whys of why stuff does this. And I'm not sure why this is doing this. I might do some research and tell you when we do our next set of stretch and folds, but this is getting really hard, so I'm going to call it quits this time around. For our second set of stretch and folds, I'm going to cover this back up, and I'm going to put it back in my oven with the light on to keep it nice and warm and cozy. And hopefully this thing lightens up a bit, because I'm very concerned of how this dough is right now. Hopefully it works out. If you know why my dough is like this, please comment and tell me. I might be doing some research, but you know, any input is helpful input. Okay, back in the oven it goes. Okay, so what are we on now? Third round of stretch and folds. See how this dough feels now. Just getting my hands wet again so they don't stick. Okay, so let's stretch and I'm sliding around the bowl, stretch and fold. Yeah, it really doesn't want to do this. It's amazing how one little change, such as flour, can make so much change to your dough. Stretch it, fold it. It will stretch and fold, but it's taking a lot of effort. And it's really not like combining with itself like it typically does. Like, usually I can't see every fold I've made. So, maybe when we go to shape after bulk fermenting, like proofing, it'll be different, I hope. Stretch and fold. All right, so we'll call that it. The last round of stretch and folds. And I just want you to be one ball like you typically are. That's all. Just want you to be a ball. All right, so today is really an experiment. Okay, so that's, I did it enough. Third, that's gonna be final round of stretch and folds. I'm gonna cover this back up and put it back in my oven with the light on to keep it nice and cozy. And we'll get back to this and I'll check on it in maybe 4 hours. So what time is it now? It's 8 o'clock. Maybe 12, lunchtime. Maybe a little bit before then. I'll see how it goes. Everything depends on the climate in your home, really. It could take 4 hours, it could take 12 hours. Okay, so this has been bulk fermenting in my fridge, or not my fridge, sorry, the stove with the light on for over 6 hours, and it's still not passing the poke test. So you poke it, and you want to see it spring back, and it's okay, that one kind of did, but it's still not good enough. It's not quite doubled in size. It does seem more doughy than when I stuck it in there. Like it wants to combine with itself. So we'll see how shaping goes later, but it's still not ready. So I'm just going to cover it back up with the saran wrap and I'm going to put it back in the oven. Okay, so dough has been fermenting for about 9.5 hours. It's passing the poke test. So now I'm going to attempt to shape it, stick it in the bandage. When your dough is ready, it should pretty well just fall out of the bowl. This is needing the tiniest bit of help, but really not a lot. And it's starting to seem a lot like other dough I've made, which is good because I was very concerned. So I'm just going to stretch this out. It's like, get a good shot there. It's almost like a rectangle. I'm going to fold it in on itself. Fold it in on itself. Then we're going to fold it in, grab and pull and create a lot of tension in the dough, which is going to strengthen your gluten. Try not to rip it all at the same time. So kind of like tucking and rolling motion. Tucking and rolling. And then we end up with this dough. We're going to shape it into a round ball. Just by sliding it back and forth on the counter. be able to feel the pushing and pulling motion in that dough, that it's all getting tighter. Maybe a little too tight because I ripped some of my dough. Okay, so now that we have a nice dough ball, I'm going to flour this banneton, and then I'm going to put this in here and cover it up with saran wrap and put it in the fridge to finish cold proofing overnight. I'm going to be very generous with the flour because I do not want it sticking. And I find the longer I leave it in the fridge, the better flavor it gets. I could go ahead and cook this right now, but I'm not going to. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in the banneton, pretty side down. If it looked like there's a lot of separation here, I could try stitching it, but I'm actually very happy with how this is looking. I was very concerned with the dough earlier, but right now it looks good, so saran wrap it in the fridge. All right, so now it is Sunday morning. I have had my bread here proofing in the fridge overnight, and I'm going to turn it out onto my bread sling. Hopefully it doesn't stick. I was very generous with flour, so it should be good. I hope. Oh, beautiful. I love this just because it's silicone and I can just fold it right out. All right, so here is my loaf. And now I'm going to score it. I currently have my Dutch oven preheating inside my oven to 450 degrees. I want a little bit more flour over here. It doesn't have any. Just so it looks prettier when it comes out and it's all nice and even. And now I'm going to score this loaf. And because Valentine's Day is coming up, I think I'm going to attempt to score a heart. So it doesn't look like a heart. Don't make fun of me, please. I've never done one before, but I'm going to give it a try. I'm just going to that way. Okay, that side's not too bad, but let's see what my left hand can do with this side. All the way around. Actually, that's not bad at all. Go a little deeper up here because it wasn't that deep. And I'm hoping for when this expands and rises, this heart just pops right out. So I'm just going to make sure it's deep enough for it to do that. Let's see how that turns out. What do you think? Good score? I think it's not too bad. Okay, and let's see. My oven is still not preheated. So let's give it a few more minutes and then we'll come back and we will put this loaf in the oven for 40 minutes with the lid on. I'm also going to put a couple ice cubes in the bottom of that Dutch oven just to give it a little bit more steam. And sourdough needs the steam. That's how it cooks, kind of. Yeah, so I'm going to pause this video for now, and I'll come back when the oven's preheated. All right, Dutch oven is preheated. I got it out on the stove there. I'm gonna stick some ice cubes in the bottom. Just a couple. And then Dutch oven is clean, by the way. It doesn't matter how hard I scrub. I can never get all this stuff off. If you know some early in the morning, tongue's not working. Tips or tricks to get everything off that Dutch oven. It's enamel coated, cast iron. Please let me know in the comments. I'm just gonna take my bread sling, put it in here. I wanna make sure these tabby things are out when I put the lid on. Much easier to do today than usual. And then I'm gonna pop this in the oven, set a timer for 40 minutes with the lid on. Timer. And again, I have it preheated at 450, Dutch oven and everything. Okay, timer for 40 minutes. And when we come back, we'll see what it looks like. And I don't know if you can see my starters going over here. This is my rye starter. And I have not used it yet. But I think I might make a loaf with it when I'm done with this one in the oven. Or maybe I'll start mixing it up right now. Who knows? I really want to try it though. But I don't think I'm going to use the rye flour to make it like rye sourdough. I'm going to use my rye starter and mix it with all-purpose flour and see how that turns out, just because, like I keep saying, my kitchen's one big science experiment right now and I am just loving it. So many new things to try. All right, so enough about the starters. We'll come back in 40 minutes and I'll show you what this loaf looks like when it comes out. I have concerns about it because of the new all-purpose flour that I was using and just how different the dough seemed yesterday than anything I've ever made. So I'm kind of excited to see how it turns out. It does look like a much nicer dough today after proofing than initially after mixing yesterday. Had a lot of concerns, a lot of worries. So let's see how it turns out. And I kind of want to see how it turns out before I start mixing another loaf with that flour. Maybe I need to adjust my portions a little bit, cut back on some of the flour. We'll see. Okay, so it's been about 40 minutes. There it is, timer going off. So let's get this out of the oven so I can take the lid off and show you what it looks like. Hopefully beautiful. I hope, fingers crossed. And then I'll throw it back in here for another 10 minutes and I will check its temperature. Oh, look at this. Okay, so my heart score is working. Look at that. It lifted right up. Nice expansion. Oh, love it. Okay, so I'm going to put it in the oven. I'm going to turn down the temperature to, oh, not 405. I want 425. And I'm going to put it back in the oven for 10 minutes and then I'm going to check on it. But, oh, look at that. I love how the heart is lifting up. It's creating a beautiful ear. I get so excited. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes and the timer is about to go off and I am so excited to see how this loaf looks. I think it's one of the most beautiful loaves I have made. So I'm gonna get out my instant read thermometer here and I'm gonna check it, and I want it around 205, 210 degrees. Oh my, look at it, she's beautiful. Okay, get out. Open up instant read thermometer with one hand. I don't want to poke the heart, but I want it right in the middle to see what we're at. And you know what? She's not ready yet. Another 10 minutes maybe. All right, let's put her back in. Check on her again in 10 minutes. Okay, here it is. I put it in for an additional 10 minutes. It's looking beautiful. Check the temperature. Make sure it's up to the, got the thermometer up, make sure it's up to the 205, 210. She is done. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm just going to transfer her onto this cooling rack for a couple hours, and then I'm going to slice into her. Look at it. So pretty. Nice rise. I think my oven cooks a little uneven, judging by that ear. Look. Gorgeous. See all the air pockets in there? I'm excited to cut it open. But I gotta wait till it's cold first because we don't want gummy, doughy sourdough. Okay, I've let it cool for hours. It's cold. I should cut into it. It should not be doughy. I kind of don't want to because she's so beautiful, but I want to see what the inside looks like. Need a good bread knife. Come on. It's just that bottom part. Anyone else have trouble like this cutting into the bread? It's like a fight. Okay. And there's the crumb. The crumb shot. Oh, that's funny. I know what I sound like. Okay. I'm very happy with that. It's beautiful. And I was so scared of how it was going to turn out after my dough yesterday.